Okay, the next step is to attach these boards together with pocket hole screws. Now, I'm going to be using, 3, and so I've already marked the edges for where the 1-inch box joints are going to be. And the next, let's go ahead and mark. It's not critical, but might as well do it in a neat and orderly fashion. These are like 31 inches wide. Half of 31 is 15 and a half. So there we go. 15 and a half. Let's mark 15 and a half. Up on this one. And let's just go ahead and line them up even. And then just draw a line on. I'm going to be doing them, the drilling and screwing into here. So let's go ahead and mark. Just make the mark here. And this one down here, there is going to be one more piece that's going to be actually the legs, or a bottom piece that has for feet, for lack of a better term. Okay. And let's just say come in 3 inches, because that sounds good. 3. This is just as easy to do this as it is to over here. 3, 3, 3. Okay, fairly straightforward. Okay, now we are ready to drill the holes for the pocket hole screws to join these together. Now I have rotated these around 180 degrees, and you'll see why in a minute. The sides I had marked before, they were on the other side. I've turned it around, and you'll see why in a second. What we want to do first is secure the board to the workbench so it doesn't move easily. It doesn't have to be too tight. And these are really handy clamps. These are from Harbor Freight, and actually, Horrible Freight, whatever you want to call it. These are actually something that is safe to buy at Harbor Freight. They're pretty straightforward. There's not really a lot that can go wrong with them, and you save a lot of money on it rather than buying basically the same thing with a name brand on it. So there we go. That's secured. Now we're going to be using a Craig. There's the name, Craig, not a sponsor, by the way. This is a mini pocket hole jig. This is like the cheapest one they made, which is why I have it. They actually have one now, I think, that's about the same price as this, but it actually has an adjustable thing on it where you can set it to put it in the right place. This one, you have to measure and place it. But the way it works, you see there's a drill guide right here. It drills in at a 15-degree angle. Drill comes out. Drill will come out and drill into the board. And this is set for a specified depth, and it changes depending on the thickness of material and the length of your screws you're using. And they've got instructions to tell you that. Yeah, instructions that you got to read. But this is actually really straightforward to use. Even though you have, with 3/4 inch material, you just put it at the edge of the board. On thinner material, it has to go out. On thicker material, it has to go back. And it's not a real straightforward way to figure that out either. But the 3 different sizes come in the instructions. For 1.5 inch thick material, like 2x stuff, and for 1/2 inch material, I guess stuff you may have plain thinner, and for 3/4. So what we do is, here's the spot I marked. Just line it up in the middle and get a larger one of these. And these are really essential, because you put this on and you clip it in place and it's ready to go. And you put the drill in. go. It's basically a blind pocket hole screw, or pocket hole, and the screw is a self-drilling screw. It will finish going through there and join into the other piece. But that's a totally different step. So, and with this, you can just clip it on. Here we go again. Now you see why we had to have it turn the other way. Even though we're drilling at a funny angle, we've got the edge of the board and the table here to work with. And one more. Vacuum those up later. There we have it. Oop. See? You can see the little pilot hole inside where the screw goes in. The screws look like this. They have like a wide kind of washer head and self-drilling point. They go in there, you drive them through, and they drill and connect the other board together. Pretty simple. And it's a lot easier. Yeah, some people call it cheating, but it's a lot easier than learning how to dowel and do all that. It's gives you, the less skilled a chance to do some kind of neat woodworking. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these. Actually, I'm going to do them all, and then we'll come back, and putting them together is a little bit trickier than you might think. Now I'm working on the side boards for the chest, and my first thought, since they're shorter, I was just going to do like 2 screws. Also make it go quicker. But then one of the things about having to work with wood like this, even though this is nice wood, having this screw in the middle is good, because if you've got any bow, which is curvature this way on the boards, that'll help keep the boards from bending. Join them together. If one happens to be a little bit bowed, when you join it to the others, it can stay straight. So I went ahead and put 3 screws on the sides too. Well, all the pocket holes are drilled now, and I wanted to make note of one thing, especially working with pine, and this is going to come up again, the hard greens that are in pine, the darker ones, they're actually very hard. You think of pine as a soft wood, but these dark greens are hard, and when you start drilling, you're drilling at an angle, even though it's in a guide. And when it starts, it's on one side. A couple of times I had it actually skip hard and move this along, like move it sideways, even though it was clamped on. So I started clamping it on a lot harder. This is actually pretty stout, and it's pretty stiff and hard plastic, so I was able to do it without damaging it. But it's just a funny thing that had never had happened before. It actually kept. It skipped it over. I thought I was going to grab at any point, and it just kept moving it over sideways, which is the one where you can see. Well, I guess it didn't really show up that well. Oh, there we go. See, you can see where it had actually gone almost a full drill width over to the side, and I took it off, put it back on, and clamped it on. This is going to be inside the chest, and that's going to be sanded and smooth. Actually, that's one of the steps I got to do. The pocket holes actually do have a lot of stuff sticking up, and you got to sand that off. But hey, that's another step for another time. Before we go any further, I need to sand some of this rough stuff that's left from when we drilled in. You can do that with sandpaper in your fingers, which is kind of rough, but one of the things I like to use are these sanding not really a wheel, it's a cylinder. It's got like a rubber cylinder in there. You tighten it down and it squishes it out and holds this sanding cylinder in place. Drum sanding, I think they call it. And I got it, so I got a kit, and this has actually had it quite a while. It's from Horrible Fright. These are one of those things, there's not that much to them, not much to go wrong. They work really well, and they're pretty cheap. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm actually going to be using a smaller one because it fits right on the edge there on my drill. And give you a quick shot of doing that. There you go. Just cuts the splinters and stuff that are sticking up because of the grain. Now we come to the moment of truth. Well, another moment of truth. The next moment of truth, I'm going to be actually screwing the boards together, and that can be kind of tricky. I've never worked with these with any other wood, but screwing and nailing into pine can be tricky, and drilling even, because think of pine as a soft wood, but these dark grains, the dark ones, are very hard. You go trying to drill sideways through that, especially with a small drill bit, it'll hit that hard grain and it'll go down that way. It won't drill through it with a small drill bit. A lot of times you snap drill bits off doing that. So what will happen if we're not careful is when we go to put this through here and drive it in, it's going to skip off that hard grain and go into the soft grain one way or the other. And when it does that, it'll either lift up this board, or if it goes the other way, it'll lift this board up because it's already got a hole going through there. Got to keep that from happening so that it forces this self-drilling screw to actually go through, and that actually takes quite a bit of force. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use clamps, and I'm going to use a lot of them because I could just clamp right here, but just in case it wants to make things tip, especially if these aren't quite perpendicular. They should be, but like I said, I have trouble with my table saw sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and clamp it down really hard, and then put the screw in. So we'll see how that goes. Oh yeah, and also at the same time, we need to make sure, because I've cut these to final length already, that the edges are perfectly straight together. And I'll use this to do that. Since this is precision, I'm not going to be filming it while I do it because I don't want to be distracting, but I'm telling you how I do it. I get these edges perfectly lined up with a straight edge, clamp them in place, then do this, then screw it in. The boards are now lined up straight on the edge, butted together, clamped in place. This is going to hopefully keep the other side, the good side, nice and flat with no jumps at the joints. That's what I'm looking for, because I want to do minimal sanding, and I really don't want to have to mess around with a plane on this job. So what we do, there's already a pre-drilled hole. Actually felt this try to move, and I didn't actually feel before what it was like. I think it did move a little, but let's see. I like to finish drive with my hand, because then I can feel what's okay. Yeah, it's tight. Actually pretty smooth. It's the board. It actually did move a little. It's not too bad, but because I had it clamped here and it was here, I think it actually did lift this board up a little bit, hinging there. I'm going to need to reach, I'm going to do it a little bit different on the others. I'm going to be doing these 2 boards at a time, and well, you'll see as we go along. Now, I'm going to do this other side. You can actually see how it kind of twisted this one up. I'm going to move this here, use the bigger clamps. Can't put that one in the way of the, a little tighter. If I put it right on top, the screw head won't go under. Come in on the sides with these little ones. Do that this way. Let's give this a shot. We get another one of these square tips would be nice, and then I don't. There we go. There we go. Smooth as a baby's bottom, I guess. Well, not quite that smooth. Baby's bottom doesn't have grain. Anyway. And now doing the middle ones is a different story, but we'll do that later after I get all the other ones done. There we have it. This is the end. This is kind of tough to do with my redneck GoPro thing on. Don't have the middle ones done, but there, it's basically nice and flat. I've got a little bit of a ridge there, just a little, and so I think I will be able to handle that. It's a lot better than if I hadn't done it with the clamping. One quick thing, even with clamping those boards down the way I was doing, sometimes it hits those hard grains and will push the board away. It wasn't too bad here where the clamp was, but it actually spread the board out when it was starting to drive through. I stopped, pulled the screw back out, but then I put a clamp down there just to hold the boards from spreading. Didn't have to clamp them down to the table, but still, it was a surprise. And it's just one of those things where you almost can't overdo it when you're trying to hold these things in place to get those screws driven.